Hey guys, this is Nicole Van Tassel with I Explore Science, and today I want to talk about another way that we can use our anchor experience, and that is the way that we're engaging our students with our anchor phenomenon. And the way that I want to share with you today is how we can use it to set our end goal and really prepare our students for the assessment. So the thought behind this is, traditionally, we tell our students, like, this is what you're going to need to do, and this is what I'm going to test you on, and this is like the standard. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially we are in a standards-based system. That's the reality. And I think it's actually a great strategy to help students see, hey, this is the performance expectation. Let's tear apart this evidence statement. That's great. But if we also want to incorporate more of like a student-driven approach, our students really need to understand the end goal, not just in light of like the generic science idea in the performance expectation and the disciplinary core idea in the NGSS, but also as related to this phenomenon. Because if they are navigating the pathway, we want them to be able to discern, am I moving in the right direction? Is this like a rabbit trail tangent that maybe is interesting and maybe we have time to follow, but maybe we don't have time to follow it and we want to make sure they stay on track, right? So we can use our anchor to really set that up if we create an experience that does so. And okay, so traditionally when I thought of like anchor phenomenon, like again, their purpose is definitely to spark that curiosity, get them thinking about what they know, get them thinking about what questions they have. But we know that students can ask questions that are like all over the place. And also there's nothing wrong with that. Write all those questions down. The more questions, the better. But we want to help our students learn to move in the right direction, right? If they have a problem or something that they want to solve, they need to develop the skills to identify like which questions are priority, which questions do I need to understand first before I can maybe move into these other questions I have. Which questions are just not relevant? Like curiosity, yes, but not relevant with achieving my goal. So when we present our anchor and we just are like, let's ask questions, that's just the first step. We want to help them learn how to guide their journey. And so that's why we want to think about how we're framing our anchor phenomenon to really set students up to do that. So what does that look like? I believe, and this is just my opinion, but I think that when we engage our students with our phenomenon, it's kind of boring just to be like, by the end, you need to explain this. And I mean, yes, that's like what we're doing, but if we can be more specific about the task that they are going to need to accomplish, they know the skills they need to develop. They know the questions, the core ideas, the disciplinary ideas, the science content, even as related to the phenomenon that they need to address in order to get there. And they can better map their own journey. So I'm an examples person. So what does that look like? Okay, so in the Rock Files unit, which is designed designed as a unit on like rock strata, the fossil record, and it really can get into ecosystems as well if you so choose. My phenomenon is the KPG mass extinction, so the extinction of the dinosaurs, the disappearance of dinosaur bones at the KPG boundary. So how do I present that? And honestly, how do I get students into that? So for my anchor experience, I actually ask students I don't even ask students to, I just give them a letter that says, it's like an email that says, hey, you've been invited to the Cold Case Controversies Convention. And I can't wait to learn about what case you are going to share at the convention. So they have a task right there. Now, whether I use this, I could totally just use this as my assessment task. Your task for the assessment is to prepare this presentation for our Cold Case Controversies Convention. That said, I could have a totally separate, just standalone performance task that students complete individually within a 60-minute block of time, presenting a new phenomenon, all of that. I could also totally do that. I could do both things. I could have us working on this project as we move along and then follow up with a performance task to see, okay, we did this project all together as we move through the unit. Can you repeat that? Can you do this? Can you demonstrate this skill and this understanding on this performance task afterward? Either way though, my anchor experience gives students that task right at the beginning. And so they have this email, they're like, what case are you going to present? Obviously that's not enough, but it's given them a task. So then they get their case file and it presents these victims of extinction, and there's a couple like little blurb cards or whatever about a couple different dinosaurs that disappeared at the KPG boundary. There's also a set of case notes that, these were passed to them by the person who was investigating this case prior to that. And it identifies two different theories, the asteroid impact hypothesis and the Deccan volcanism. So I've given them enough to get started. You'll notice that I don't actually have anything specifically about rock strata or really the fossil. Well, there's a little bit of mention of fossils in the fossil record. But my goal is that they're going to ask questions about how do we know the dinosaurs went extinct at this point? How do we know that there was maybe an asteroid impact? How do we know that volcanism happened or was happening at that time? So that, can get you into igneous rocks and different types of rocks, the rock cycle. It gets you obviously into fossils and rock strata and the stories that is told in there. It also obviously paves the way into, okay, even if an asteroid hit and even if there were volcanoes, like how did that lead to a worldwide global mass extinction event? And that can flow into the ecosystems. But you can see that like right from this engaging activity. It's not just, hey, dinosaurs disappeared, let's ask questions about it. It's let's start digging in a little bit. Through this engaging activity, I've given my students a task to complete throughout the unit. And then as we, complete a lesson about rock strata, or we complete a lesson about the rock cycle and they discover, how igneous rocks are formed or something like that, they can come back and they can be like, oh, so they know that all this volcanism was happening because there's these igneous rock layers that are just ginormous in the, I can't remember what they're called right now, but you can see how we can come back to our project, our initial task, which is explaining what happened to these victims, to my dinosaur victims, and throughout the unit, and they have a clear guidepost. So along those lines, when students maybe ask a question or start going down a different tangent, it's an opportunity, instead of saying to them, this is not relevant, we can't address that question now, we can put that back on the student and we can ask, okay, that's a really interesting question. Do you think that's going to help us accomplish our task, explaining what happened, what happened to this dinosaur, or preparing our presentation for the Cold Case Convention? And students can then discern, yes, this is going to help me on my journey, or maybe not. No, maybe I'll save this one for later. Because that's ultimately what we want our students to do. We want to put it on our students to be making those decisions, because those are the skills they're going to need later on in life. There's not always going to be somebody who's telling them yeah, do this, follow these steps for every single task. They have to learn how to make those decisions on their own, and we can help them begin doing that in the safety of our classroom. So that's one more way that you can actually use your anchor to not just launch and spark your unit, but really be guiding your unit throughout the entire storyline, and help shift that navigation responsibilities to your students, but also keep them on track to meet your standards and your content objectives. I hope this was helpful. If you have other questions about the NGSS, phenomenon-based learning, student-owned science, please reach out. Please send me an email, send me a message. I love doing these question and answer kind of things. And pop up PD for you. Have a great one.